Let's go!
So yeah, let's get right into it. An exchange of $7.5 billion took place between one of the biggest companies in the world, between one of the biggest video game companies in the world, right? Like a lot of the games that come from Bethesda don't really, like outside of Doom and maybe a couple others, the big things like the Elder Scrolls and stuff of the like isn't really, the Fallouts isn't really games that I've been interested in. But these games are huge, right? These are giant games. If there's one thing I can compare this to, the similar company doing a similar thing, it's Microsoft buying the shit out of people. It's back when Microsoft bought Rare from Nintendo. This feels really similar, right? We have a huge company buying out a lot of IPs and a lot of titles suddenly. This is on a scale that's a bit different because the industry is so much bigger, right? Like Fallout, I don't know the state of Fallout that we're in right now because of Fallout 76 and however you felt about Fallout 4. What's happening with Elder Scrolls or the Star Alliance, whatever the heck that next game was. Doom, now being a Microsoft property. There's a lot of huge games. So many IPs just got absorbed by Microsoft. And for a lot of people that are kind of confused with what's going on, I've been reading into it a little bit. Essentially, there's a couple of games that are still going to be on PlayStation because I'd imagine Microsoft does not want to negotiate the usage rights behind the release of like a couple of titles. There was still a couple of games that are supposed to come out for like PS4 or PS5 that I think one of them's Ghostwire, which is technically supposed to be a PlayStation exclusive, and then the time loop game Deathloop. And these have been around for like a while, right? We've known about them for some time. I don't think they want to renegotiate the contracts for those because that could be a very iffy situation. And long story short, there's a pretty good chance that with what's going on in the video game scape right now, with the buyout scape, that Sony was already trying to buy these guys in general, you know? That there was already acquisitions probably in place from other companies. I even read a rumor that other companies out there, potentially like Tencent, have been peeping in and looking at the scape of who's available to buy and stuff like that. So there's already been like a lot of rumors of this for a long time. What's funny is we heard about this. There was a rumor like 3 to 4 months ago that was rolling around like crazy that Xbox is buying up Sega, and it didn't come to fruition. It didn't happen. There was no announcement at the Xbox events that suddenly Sega was going to be going to Microsoft. But it was talked about for a very long time. And people were like, this might be where it happens. This might be where it happens. And then eventually the rumors all fell out because nothing was announced. What's weird is that now this stuff is taking place where Microsoft drops almost $8 billion on the entirety of Bethesda's library. Here's another crazy thing. Once this starts happening, chat, you have to start putting the pieces together where it's like, oh, we were hearing about this happening, but it didn't happen. Remember when we heard about that happening? That was a long time ago. That seems kind of weird. Now this is sort of like coming to a front where it seems like these big companies are just straight being bought out by Microsoft or bought out by Sony to sort of just start scooping these huge conglomerates out of the water. And of course, I mean, it makes sense. The current state of the world, we don't want individuals to give everyone a chance, right? We don't want to risk these guys getting bigger. Let's just buy them out. That's the new wave of industry that's been happening. And it's really, over the past few years, has really hit the video game industry. Long story short, if anyone remembers, about, I'd say 4 or 5 years ago, there was a rumor that Capcom was doing so poorly around 2015, 2016, that they were doing a lot of corporate restructuring of the company to be bought out. And the lead company that was rumored to buy out Capcom even was Tencent. That Tencent was apparently, in rumors many years ago, potentially going to buy out Capcom pretty soon. That did not eventually happen, right? But once again, like, these things are sort of starting to like come to a head because this shit is happening now, right? These things take years to sort of negotiate and take place. It makes you think that if Bethesda could be bought out, right? Easily one of the most profitable and biggest selling game companies out there. I think that there's like a chance of this shit happening, right? Like this, we could potentially be in like a new crazy world where if Sony on their end, who has made a pretty big amount of profit, not a profit, but used a lot of their equity to sort of buy out some companies, but nothing on the same scale that Microsoft has, right? Nothing on the same scale. But you have to imagine that if companies like some bigger Japanese companies were possibly rumored about being up for sale a few years ago, then holy shit, dude, then we might be looking at a next generation of consoles that just, we don't want these games on anything else. These are now exclusive to our system and everything you make. Because a lot of people seem to be confused. Like there was some interesting press stuff that came out regarding the Bethesda acquisition where people are like, yeah, I'm pretty sure this means that Fallout and, you know, Skyrim 2 or whatever the hell's coming in the future is still going to come out on PlayStation and stuff. Dude, no. I think eventually Microsoft wants Xbox Game Pass to show up on everything, right? I think they want that. But at this time, no. Oh no, not for the time being. That is not happening. Like if there was a Microsoft kart racing game, it would feature Fusro Da Man next to Master Chief, next to Banjo-Kazooie, next to a Battletoad, next to Doom Guy. You now think that like Banjo-Kazooie is a Microsoft character. Of course it is. Because it's just been ingrained with us. But now that's actually like, you need to like implant that into your brain. Doom Guy is a Microsoft character now. Skyrim Guy, like all this shit is officially Microsoft characters. They belong to them now. If those games are going to be on other systems, there has to be insane negotiation like Ori and the Blind Forest getting its first and second game, or something crazy along the lines of Cuphead, you know? We're in probably the weirdest timeline for the future of Xbox, for the future of video games in general. Like I said, this isn't something that affects me really personally, just because I'm a native person that's just gonna have all these systems. Like I'm native to the video game scape, I'm gonna get everything. But for anyone that's a consumer that is now eyeballing an Xbox or trying to eyeball a PlayStation, and clearly PlayStation, for the longest time, PS5 has been the clear winner, right? Absolutely the clear winner. Microsoft still has an issue where they don't have a lot to show at the moment, right? Absolutely at launch, the PS5 is like, oh, this is just super sick, right? This is the way to go. However, if you start looking ahead a little bit, right? If you start having a little bit of foresight with what Microsoft is potentially setting up and the cost evaluation of what that is now that Bethesda has been soaked up, things have now fucking changed, right? Things are immediately different, especially if like the Elder Scrolls game comes out within the next couple of years, especially if another Fallout game with a new engine or something, right? Things that I don't give a shit about, but people clearly do. And the fact that those games are just free if you have Game Pass. They're all fucking free. The fact that Sony and all of their first-party games are $70. So Sony's definitely got like this, you clearly have the better games, right? They are the system that people are going to be getting. And admittedly myself, as of right now, I want what's on a PlayStation 5 way more than what's on an Xbox Series X. But with just a little bit of foresight, like, holy shit, man, Microsoft is, if you pay for that Game Pass, you're spending what, like 80 something bucks a year for Game Pass for access to how many hundreds of games? When if you bought like 3 games from Sony, you've spent over $200. Is it 180 a year? Is that how it is? I was looking at the discounted price. That one includes Xbox Live. Well then, yeah, you have to start considering Sony is still going to be charging you for their online. It's pretty clear that at the moment, Microsoft is doing their best to try to convince people that the future is going to be really crazy. You would think, right? That right at the moment, it's pretty clear that everyone's going to want a PS5 at launch. For a person that is not able to be in a situation like some of us are to be able to afford things, right? To actually have to make choices about what games you want, about how you're going to acquire those games and stuff like that. Dude, the Xbox is like extremely attractive when it comes to that. And now that the exclusives are just sort of stacking up, if they straight came out and were like, hey, Remember that thing we bought Bethesda and all those other studios? Remember that thing about us buying Sega? Sonic the Hedgehog is a fucking Microsoft character. Like, we're in a world where this shit could absolutely happen, where the Yakuza series is now exclusive to Microsoft or some shit like that. The Microsoft crew has gone on and on and on, repeatedly saying that they are still looking at Japanese companies. They've been saying this for like over a year, that their acquisition of companies includes Japanese companies, but they're trying to make the right call. Like, holy shit. With money like $7.5 billion being thrown around, we're in a world that a year from now, possibly all the Microsoft properties could immediately belong to Xbox. And you know what's crazy? You know what's even crazier about all this shit happening? It's already taking place. Phantasy Star Online 2 came back because of Microsoft. According to what happened with PSO2, Microsoft money had it, a lot of that shit already happening. So there's already a relationship with Microsoft and Sega. Shit's already taking place. So I don't know, man. Like, Sonic and Banjo in a game together? And what's even crazier is that you have to start thinking about, okay, Sony has to start feeling pressure at that point. Because all these companies are clearly for sale, right? Bitches have been clearly for sale. If Bethesda is able to be bought out with all of their properties, if Microsoft is able to buy Bethesda for more billions than what Disney paid for fucking Marvel and Star Wars combined, then you gotta better believe that other bitches are for sale. That there's definitely a market for this shit. If there wasn't before, there definitely is now. Who's next on the chopping block? It's pretty much big Japanese companies, right? Big Japanese companies got to be out there also potentially doing this too. And like I said, we already heard shit about possibly Sega becoming one with Microsoft. Here is my crazy giant brain theory of where this shit could go if this is where we're going. Number one, I think Microsoft has a good chance of buying out Sega, right? I think that's a good chance based on evidence, and I think there's already been a long-standing relationship. The original Xbox was practically a Dreamcast 2 when it came out. But on the Sony side, I'm pretty sure they're eyeballing Bluepoint. After the work that they've done for Sony, after what they did on Shadow of the Colossus, after how incredible Demon's Souls looks, I think Bluepoint is probably not even $1 billion sell that they should absolutely do that would just make them a ton of money, right? Just make them a ton of money. What's funny is that immediately after this announcement came, on Twitter, Konami was trending. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? I'm like waking up trying to just gather my mind of what the hell is happening. And no, Sony isn't buying out Konami. The people that learned, like the PlayStation diehard fans that seem to have learned that Bethesda and Fallout and everything is now Microsoft property, trending the fact that we should buy out, like that means anything, Sony should buy out Konami. Which in theory would be like incredible, but Konami isn't just a video game company, right? They make like medical equipment and stuff, and that's actually where they make most of their money, medical equipment and gambling and things of that nature, right? That would be amazing to get Konami out of Konami's hands. Probably one of the sickest things that could ever happen from this entire thing, but I don't think that's gonna happen. There has been rumors of this shit for a while, like Silent Hills potentially coming back and stuff like that. I don't buy it. However, I think if there's like a big Japanese company out there that already was rumored to go through restructuring to be on the market to be sold, I can even bring up the friggin' article because I made a video talking about this shit like 5 years ago. I think in a world where Microsoft owns Bethesda and ZeniMax and all their IPs, where Microsoft now owns Sega and all their IPs, I think Sony buys Capcom. I think that makes a lot of sense. Just put yourself in the shoes where Street Fighter already has a close association with Sony, but now Monster Hunter and Resident Evil are Sony games. What's crazy is that doesn't even seem that's very unlikely anymore. After $7.5 billion gets thrown around from Microsoft, as well as like hundreds of millions and others, even Sony doing the same thing to buy up a lot of companies to make sure they don't make games for anyone else anymore. This isn't really weird. It kind of is like, it feels like this is all being set up for something. It definitely is weird, right? Will this actually result in more games being made? It would. And I can tell you that, like, the whole point of this shit isn't to stifle creativity. The whole point of these companies getting bought out, like Bethesda getting bought out, is possibly one of the best things that could happen to Bethesda, because the money that comes from this, unless it literally all goes into the pockets of like corporate greed, which granted this entire industry is being revolving around, could actually go into technology enhancement, right? Actually making new engines for their games. Stop using the same fucking engine on all their games. Pretty sure they're using the same thing that they made the Elder Scrolls games on the original fucking Xbox, just modified, right? I don't even know. But it's like what everyone's been complaining about for years is that these games are just polished turds. I'm not an expert because I don't play them. I just hear about the people that have been bitching about Bethesda games for so long. So this actually could be one of the biggest things that could happen to Bethesda for a lot of their biggest games, is that it could end up getting the polish. It could actually get a Microsoft passive polish, which would be very helpful. So all things considered, I think that's actually a good thing for the quality of these games, because in the state that it is with Bethesda being the way they are, would you trust the next Skyrim game or any of these other games that are essentially run by the same crew to look better, if not be better games? I don't know. Considering the way things have going, they're the epitome of like a Pokemon game. Why do we need to spend more money making the game when so many people buy it already? It's like the same exact shit, you know? I think in the event that these other big companies, if they do get bought out, like Sega or Capcom or Square Enix or some shit, like, I can't even process the thought if an entity like Square Enix got bought out by Sony. But you know what? It makes sense. At this point in time, shit makes sense. Does it mean that these games won't be coming to PC? No. Absolutely not. Clearly, the winner in every situation here is going to be PC. These guys are clearly after the console market, because all these Microsoft games that are now Bethesda games are going to be coming out on Xbox, Games Pass PC, Windows 10 Store, or like Steam, right? For sure. And most of the games that would be bought up by Sony have a good chance, if they were originally on PC, like almost every Final Fantasy game is on PC. Like most of the stuff that would be bought up by them inherently with a chance to come out on PC would probably still come out on PC. The crazy part is that Microsoft isn't taking an approach that is half-hearted anymore. They are clearly doing what I don't want them to do, right? They are still doing what I do not want them to do. Instead of them focusing on the things that made Microsoft titles like enjoyable and great throughout the years from the original Xbox till now, they are still not doing that. Putting the effort and money into their own first-party titles. Microsoft's plan is just to expand our first-party titles. Let's just buy other people so now they are first-party, right? Like we see it in fucking Halo Infinite. You see it in like first party like Microsoft stuff when it does get shown. They don't have the grab that PlayStation games have. So their approach is like, well, fuck it. If our first party isn't powerful enough, we'll just fill it with other games that are super powerful, and now they're first party. And I don't agree with that. It is literally the epitome. It's not what I want, right? Because it's the epitome of just like taking this shit and throwing it at the wall and hoping it sticks. Let's hope that enough people care about Bethesda games that eventually now they're going to start looking our direction, because now we are Bethesda, motherfucker. I hope that it leads to better games that come from these companies that get bought out. I hope it leads to higher quality, and I hope that it leads to them not forgetting about their own fucking games. Killer Instinct, you know? I'm telling you right to your face. I like Killer Instinct, right? I like fighting games and stuff, but I'm not even talking about that. I'm looking in you in the eyes, Microsoft, in the eyes. After Crash Bandicoot came out and was remastered and showed up on PlayStation, which eventually ended up showing, right, how in the holy mother of God is there not a Banjo-Kazooie big HD remaster remake? How? How did you not immediately greenlight that shit? How? These are huge games with huge amounts of nostalgia, with a huge audience that would give a shit. Would it sell as much as Skyrim? No, but it would put you in a place that looks a lot better to all the people that love that old shit, right? It would make a lot of headlines. It would make a lot of sense if it looked good. Like, how the hell, when Crash Bandicoot got remade in some way, much less to even being remade again now there's another one. How is there not like remakes of classic Rare games in some way? What is going on? And for Battletoads to eventually, like, I don't think the new Battletoads is specifically bad. It's just not what people were looking for. Like, not many people were looking for Battletoads to turn into like an Adult Swim cartoon. that was playable. Because even as someone that doesn't give a shit about a lot of these things, I'm even sitting here going, oh, fuck. What is this going to do to the industry? Like, holy shit. And everybody is saying the same thing right now. This is a big change. So all things considered, I think in terms of the bang for your buck, Microsoft's got it down. It's their dissertation paper, right? They have written the book on, we are going to go after the consumer and we're going to give them so much. They know that they're behind by a shit ton. So they're gonna go out and give people free Bethesda games. Every fucking game we've had for the past like 2 years, 200 plus big ass AAA games, like even getting EA involved in some way. Like there is a clear effort from Microsoft to get you on their side. And it's pretty hard to argue against it. Even though, like, once again, I have to say from me personally, I don't give a shit. Like a lot of the things that they're talking about for me personally aren't huge, but for a lot of people, that buffet is really hard to ignore. Sony's in the exact opposite. Sony knows their shit's expensive, is aware, but it looks so good. The stuff that Sony has looks amazing. And it looks truly next gen. And they're bringing back titles that people want. And that's inherently making people happy in a different way. We've never been like this. This next generation war has ever been like this at this point. In fact, the first thing that came to my mind was them buying up Rare. And I don't think that'll happen again, where Rare was essentially turned into a much different company afterwards. But my God, dude, I think there's a chance that Sony could buy out FromSoft, their parent company. Like they're owned by a big company. They'd have to buy out their parent company if that was the case. I don't know. Big brain theory. Where we're currently at, Microsoft has the bang for the buck, and clearly now that buck is definitely looking very appealing to a lot of people now that what just happened. Sony has these exclusives and these beautiful looking games that are very expensive. They are just the completely different opposite end of the spectrum. But there's going to be other moves to be made after this. Losing $8 billion in a company acquisition doesn't just stop there, because you have to imagine that not only Sony, but potential other buyers that we might not even know about are probably pretty pissed that they just lost Bethesda / ZeniMax and all their games. And that usually leaves on the table a lot of money to go to somebody else. That's the situation we're at in the video game industry. And I wouldn't be surprised if by the end of this year, we see something else happen on the similar grand scale of this. This shit's getting crazy. And you know what's even better about it? It's not a bad thing. This isn't a bad thing. Because Microsoft could have easily had rolled over and been like, fuck it. You can download the Xbox Games Pass app on your PS5. You could download Halo Infinite on the Xbox Games Pass app on your PS5, along with all of our other games. We're not going to make hardware anymore. We're just going to be a games developer. They could have turned into Sega, you know? But instead they're not. They're putting in a lot of work into the business relationships and a lot of work into making these deals. Sony is not going to be the inherent king of the mountain with what's happening right now, when it clearly seemed like they were. I think this scope of what's happening is actually good for us, because there isn't one clear winner anymore. After what just happened, there isn't one clear winner. All things considered, it's a good thing when companies are actually working to make you happy, right? Because if they constantly know that you're going to do everything and anything to do whatever the hell they're doing, they'll try to get away with anything. That is just the nature of business. They have to try to get away with it. What about Nintendo? Nintendo's on their own fucking planet. They don't give a shit.